Fresh Art International presents conversations about creativity in the 21st century.
Sono qui subito a presentarvi.
I'm Kathy Bird. Today we're airing a very special summer adventure episode, exclusively on FreshArtInternational.com. In this conversation, Tampa-based curator Megan Voeller remembers the pilgrimage that took her to Italy for a magical encounter with the artist Christo's latest environmental art project, the Floating Piers. For only 16 days, the public art installation was open and free to the public. The piers were a magnificent floating dock system, 3 kilometers long, made of 220,000 high-density polyethylene cubes covered in vivid yellow fabric. Christo funded the entire project himself, as he always does, from the sale of his drawings. Megan Voeller's experience of the piers began in late 2015, when she heard the legendary Christo speak about the project during an exhibition of his drawings at the Tampa Museum of Art in Florida. This summer, Megan flew to Paris for a philosophy seminar. After spending 2 weeks deep in thought, she hopped onto a cheap flight to Milan, rented a small car, and headed for the mountains in the Lombardi region of northern Italy. She was en route to the village of Sulzano, at the edge of the phenomenal Lake Iseo, for her very first in-person experience of Christo's immersive work.
It's jaw-droppingly beautiful when you get there. I mean, I have to admit it was a kind of cinematic moment where I was like rolling the windows on the car down and sticking my head out and just watching the lake go by and thinking, holy cow, I'm going to have like a plate of pasta and a glass of wine tonight. This is the life. So.
I'm reading that it was 100,000 square meters of shimmering fabric.
It was brilliant orange. And when I was there, the sun couldn't have been shining any brighter. It was really something to behold.
The way Megan reached the piers was wonderfully challenging. Tens of thousands of people were on the same pilgrimage, you see.
I had to park a few towns away. Literally, you would be stopped by police trying to go to the actual town that this project was located in, which was called Sulzano. I took a bus to a kind of closer point, the actual town of Iseo, and then there was a line to get on a different set of buses to go to Sulzano, and that line, we were being told, was about 2.5 hours long to even get on one of these buses. At that point, I was a little bit like, okay, it's 11 a.m. The only thing that I want to do today is see this project. I came all the way here to do this. Come hell or high water, somehow I'm going to get to the floating piers. People seem to be breaking off of this 2.5-hour bus line and saying, like, I'm just going to walk there. Like they were sort of pointing, and then groups of people would sort of start off down the sidewalk. There was a boisterous sense of just like a giant mass of people trying to figure out what to do next. And some of them were, I thought, clearly sort of just taking off on foot. And that is indeed what they were doing. And so it was kind of funny. I mean, I don't think, except for political protest, that I've ever been part of like a mob of people walking through a town. But there was just a sort of cohesive throng of people the whole way there.
It must have been incredible energy, positive energy.
It was. You definitely felt like a sort of sense of solidarity. You felt like you were part of something. We're doing this together. It was a great adventure.
A police officer in one village along the way rerouted Megan and her fellow pilgrims, directing them to trudge up a small mountain path. The detour ended with a surprising reward. You'll see in her photographs a breathtaking, long-distance view of the floating piers.
From there, it was kind of just a downhill walk into Sulzano to actually get there. And that was just kind of navigating the hordes of people. You know, all of a sudden you were at this kind of like nexus of a pilgrimage site, and you had to figure out how to actually get in and just sort of weave your way into the project. All of a sudden you had arrived and it was time to take your shoes off and start walking on the saffron fabric.
It was 3 kilometers long, from what I understand.
It certainly seemed at some point like a little bit longer than it needed to be, but it was incredibly long when you're hot and you're thinking, at what point sort of is this experience going to be complete, even while you're having an amazing time. You walked from Sulzano, from the mainland. You walked out to the mountain island in the center of Lake Iseo, Monte Isola, which was so cool. That was the sort of land mass, the project that the piers wrapped around. So you walked on this pier out to Monte Isola, and that was kind of this wonderful, wide open bridge kind of experience. There were a ton of people on it, but it still felt like this very open space. And then you kind of got to a narrower walkway, or felt narrower, that was wrapping along the side of Monte Isola. And that was just packed with people. The thickness of people in this space was very intense and also kind of wonderful. It was just a real experience of humanity. I mean, I've never done like a religious pilgrimage like the Hajj or something, but it had the feeling of just being with an incredible number of people who had this sort of unusual shared goal.
A sense of enduring the experience while rejoicing in it.
Yes, absolutely. I mean, it was hot. People were stripping their clothes off. People were throwing water on themselves. There was a sense of, it almost had like a kind of athletic aspect to it.
How did it feel under your feet to walk on that fabric? Well, I saw one description Christo wrote saying the piers, those who experienced the floating piers felt like they were walking on water, or perhaps the back of a whale.
Ah, that's a nice way to put it. When he was here in Tampa, he said to people in this sort of wonderfully cheeky way that it was going to be very sexy, like walking on a waterbed. It did feel like that. The back of a whale is a genius description of it, because it just has that sense of, like it's very stable, and yet it's also in motion at the same time.
It must have been stunning. Just visually and physically, just the visceral experience of it, which is something I don't remember with any of his other projects. I've never known him to create one that you can interact with in this way. I just think it's brilliant.
It was really special. I mean, there were a couple moments when I just felt delirious. Like, what is this? Where is this beautiful place that I am right now?
I'm Kathy Bird, and this is Fresh Art International with a special summer feature. If you enjoyed this conversation with Megan Voeller about her adventures with Christo, please share the link with your friends and explore other episodes on our website. We've produced over 100 episodes with artists, curators, architects, and filmmakers from around the world. You can subscribe to our podcast on iTunes, Android, and Stitcher. And you can find us on SoundCloud, Google Play Music, and Public Radio Exchange too. Thank you for listening. Stay tuned for more conversations.